Hey, Foot Clan, if you haven't tried this yet, you need to. Ballpark, yes, the makers of all those delicious hot dogs we tailgate with, they just launched Ballpark Flame Grilled Jerky. It comes in 5 flavors, and it is so good because it's actually both tough and tender. It's dried for toughness and then flame grilled to make it tender and give it a great char-grilled flavor. Take it from us. It's awesome. Share a tough and tender moment using the hashtag Tough and Tender, and Ballpark will find their favorites and send them some free samples. All right, let's get to the show.
Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast with your hosts, Andy Holloway, Jason Moore, and Mike Wright.
Hello, everybody. It's Monday, October 19th, and we have got to stop putting these food-related pre-roll discussions because
hungry.
You might as well have hit a button. It's just like, all right, be very hungry, now do a show. That's not what I want.
Yeah.
Although our best sponsors are clearly going to be food sponsors for this,
Yes.
for us and for our crowd.
That's because we won't be able to not just talk about them all the time.
I could go for some jerky right now.
I know. And
We
you
would
should go
break
for
out
some
the-
Ballpark.
We would break out the jerky if it wasn't all gone.
Yes, that's true. Welcome to the show. This is the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. I'm Andy Holloway, joined by Jason Moore and Mike, the Fantasy Hitman. Right?
Hello.
Jason?
Hi.
Okay.
Very excited about today.
Yeah. This is a big show. Did you have something you're going to say right off the bat? Or?
No,
Okay.
I'm just excited. We had a lot of good picks. I had a plethora of tweets thanking us for different lineup decisions and some of our more bold picks that turned out well, so I'm happy about that.
Yeah, I was really happy. Somebody said they won $300 on FanDuel this morning because they rolled Kaepernick out there.
Yeah.
And, when I make Kaepernick my start of the week, that is a trepidatious adventure.
It's scary.
Same with you and Hoyer this
Yeah.
week. You're like, you could play it safe, but, sometimes these matchups work out, and especially on FanDuel, if you're starting somebody that's no one else is starting, which is probably Colin Kaepernick, then you're in good shape. So we've got our fantasy stud muffins today. We've got the fantasy duds, the guys that didn't work out. You're going to start, it's week 6. We can draw some season-long conclusions at this point, and that's what my quick question is going to be. We're going to preview the Monday night game. We're going to get into the mailbag a little bit, answer some Foot Clan listener questions. And then, then we'll spend the rest of the time discussing what a genius Chuck Pagano is.
Oh, man. So I've got to set the table for this.
Yeah.
Both Jason and I were on delay for the game.
Yeah, for the Sunday night game.
Had to put the kiddos to bed, so you got to push pause.
Yep.
So I come back. I'm watching the game, trying to catch up, and then I get this message on our
On
IM,
Slack.
on Slack, our IM device, and it's Andy saying, "What?"
I was like, that is the strangest play I've ever seen in my entire life.
And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And that's what Andy's like. Well, that play. I'm like, well, I'm on delay, so I have not seen it. So I eventually get to it. The clearly we're talking about the fake punt.
Yeah.
And I just
Is that what that's even called?
I don't know. That's true. I don't know what you call it. I erupt in laughter
Oh,
because it's one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my life.
because
When they snap the ball,
Yeah.
right in front of 5 people, and it's like, at the first, before you realize what the intent was supposed to be, you just go, what are you doing?
The best-
And then the flag comes, and the way that the referee comes out and says, none of their line, he goes, none of the right side of the line was on the line. This is a foul. It's like, I've never heard something like that in my life. It was delightful.
I loved it because it is exactly what it would look like if you put me and Mike out there and said, run a play. And Mike gets the, the snap, the man who snapped it.
Oh, that was a clean snap.
Oh, man.
But so
Let's poo-poo the game away in one play.
yeah, it was a 6-point game. But first off, you're not tricking anyone, let alone the Patriots, with that formation. It reminded me of, was it Washington who had a couple series of just ridiculous, what they call them, like the swing gate kicks, where they would do that, where they would send the entire line over, and it never worked.
Nope.
Because it's ridiculous.
I I'm gonna go on record and say I believe it would have worked if they didn't snap the ball. They were across the line so quick. I think they were excited to make the play. I think if the guy doesn't snap the ball like an idiot, I think it
wouldn't have
Maybe.
mattered. The penalty.
It was 3. It was 4th and 3.
No,
but
he's saying the penalty would not have been called if they came off sides. That would have been a
because they never
penalty.
snapped.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Well, it didn't work. And when you try to outthink Bill Belichick, you better outthink him the right way.
You better teach your players to really actually follow the play.
Yeah, well.
And did you hear Pagano after? He's like, I guess I just didn't coach.
Yeah.
Coach. You're like,
Yeah,
because
you think?
attempting that play is not coaching. It's
No.
ridiculous.
I don't know. It was pretty bad. I think Julian Edelman put it best. Shame on them for trying that.
Is that what he said?
What?
That's what he said.
Oh,
He
Julian.
said shame on them.
He is quickly becoming one of my favorite players.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
like Edelman a lot.
So before we get to the quick question and our fantasy rewind for week number 6, I want to remind everybody we are on Twitter at the FF Ballers. We are also on Instagram now. I tweeted a picture of Mr. Martavis Bryant, and the picture that we have of him is autographed picture saying hello to the Foot Clan.
yeah,
That's
Marty
on our wall.
McBride.
Did I say I tweeted that picture?
you did.
Well, that's true, I guess.
Yeah,
when you take a picture.
Instagram tweeted.
Yes, you can find our website, thefantasyfootballers.com. Submit your fantasy football trade questions, waiver questions, start-sit questions, and
Life questions.
life questions. We actually, those are more fun to answer. Yeah.
We
so-
actually had fielded a question from it was just the initial CP, so I wasn't sure who it was from, and it was a formation lineup of that fake punt. And it said, should I try this in a real NFL game? And I said, what do you, no. And it turned out it was Chuck Pagano, and he didn't listen to my
Oh,
advice. And
CP.
yeah, see?
See, we play flag football, and that seems like something we would have done the first year, and then we still wouldn't. We still would have called timeout. Like when you see the confusion out there, Pagano should have been like timeout, 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 timeout.
Nope,
Really?
you got to
Anyway,
go
all
for
right.
it.
All right, quick question, guys. This answers itself in the stat sheet. But are Eddie Lacy is Eddie Lacy and C.J. Anderson, are they officially and unequivocally busts?
No and yes, respectively.
Okay, that's your opinion.
Yeah, I'm going with.
Come on, how can you say they're not? You're 6 weeks in. Eddie Lacy's had exactly 0 games that put him in the top 5 ever on a week, and then now he's laid an egg 2 straight weeks with basically non-existent performance.
He is unequivocally and officially a bust for whoever drafted him. He probably ruined that team. However, I believe
that is a bust.
That is a bust, except I believe there's going to be teams that trade for him on a buy for pennies on the dollar. Just get him for something cheap. A guy needs, a replacement on a buy, and he's already, probably 1-4, and you grab him, and he's coming back off the buy. He's still got that ankle injury. He's got a week to rest up now, and he could come back to a decent team and help you win a championship. So at that point, it's hard for me to call him a bust.
Unlike our expectations for C.J. Anderson, because Ronnie Hillman ran well.
And more carries.
And C.J. was pathetic.
If you were in a points per catch league, he actually had an okay day. He didn't kill you this past week. But
it was a matchup that you would have expected more than whatever he gave you.
Yeah,
13 for 40.
What's interesting for both of these running backs.
No double-digit games from C.J. Anderson all year.
Interesting for these running backs is look at the offense for both teams. Now, Green Bay's offense is doing great. However, look at Rodgers. Rodgers is not, the last few weeks, is not putting up the Aaron Rodgers numbers where if you draft a guy in the first round that you need it from a quarterback. Randall Cobb. What is going on with Randall Cobb in this? So, I mean, and Denver is the same with, I guess their wide receivers are still producing, but Peyton Manning and the running game both are garbage for fantasy.
Has there ever been a worse offense on a 6-0 team?
I don't know.
Yeah, probably. I mean, Baltimore is what comes to mind when your defense is so dominant. Your offense just doesn't do much at all. They did enough. They did enough to win, and that's all that matters because no one will remember the details of this if they can get deeper into the playoffs.
Or they could collapse.
So let's go ahead and get into the rewind.
Weekly Rewind.
Before we get into
the
rewind, I just wanted to shout out. So on SleeperBot, one of the iOS apps that we love because of the breaking news and everything. They updated, and they now have these kind of like mini groups, a clan. And someone started a Foot Clan,
Ooh.
an actual Foot Clan, and they invited me in, so I joined, of course. And they wanted a confirmation that it was actually me. So it is indeed me that is in your
There
clan.
you go.
And I think they're capped at 25. So if you were lucky enough to get in a group with me, count your blessings.
But you can always get in a group with you at jointhefoot.com.
I try to leave.
That's true.
I was gonna say I try to leave any group that Mike's in.
Yeah.
Weekly quick updates on injuries here.
Yeah. Not too bad.
What do you think about this Mariota MRI, the knee injury?
I bet it is somewhat similar to Big Ben's injury. That would be my guess.
So he could miss some time then?
I think so.
That's unfortunate. He's having a pretty good rookie year.
Yeah, no, he just after the hit, man. Yeah, that's funny. After the hit, man. But after the hit, he did not look good. And that, I don't know, it felt like classic Wisenhunt just leaving him in there to me. What is going on? You look lost.
I'm good. We're talking Jeremy Maclin.
Macklin's out with a concussion. Everyone, as we know, all concussions are different. So Maclin could be back this week. He could miss multiple weeks. We have no idea.
What about Mr. Sammy Watkins?
Oh, that one. I'm so sick of Sammy Watkins. I've got him in 2 of my main 3 leagues, and he's such a good player who just is not staying on the field or even getting on the field. But yeah,
I mean, he hurt himself on a touchdown.
Right. Yeah, he caught the touchdown
yeah.
and got it and got injured. He's probably going to miss the next week, and then I believe it's their bye after that. So, he should come back full strength because of that bye week. That's the hope.
And they checked his ankle. It was not broken.
Right.
If people are concerned about that, so it's just a sprain. But
Do
he
we-
was on crutches.
Yeah.
So that's not good.
Ty Montgomery had an ankle injury. Jeff Janis came in and actually made 2 really big plays. Do we, is there anything there?
The Twitter was very happy because the Twitter crowd really likes Jeff Janis. But both of his big plays, I think he only had the 2 catches. They were broken plays, which, yes, Aaron Rodgers thrives on broken plays.
Yeah, the little pitch forward where he took it down the sideline.
And the just scrambling around, lob it up. But those aren't the kind of plays that I want to count on. I think Janis is a guy that you can add for speculation and put him on your bench. He's not a guy who's going to go in for me right away. And they're on bye this week. The Packers are on bye this week. And Adams, I would think, is back the week after bye, which would push Janis back down. So go ahead and add him, but I'm not expecting big things right now.
Okay. Let's see. Eddie Lacy, they did confirm he was still a little bit banged up, but they also said Starks, McCarthy said Starks had outperformed him in practice, had been playing well. That's part of the reason he was out there. Emmanuel Sanders had a shoulder injury. I read this morning AC joint sprain.
Yeah.
A lot of
But he's got a bye week.
Here.
He's got 14 days to get back off the bye, so don't panic on Sanders just yet. Mike Vick went out with a hamstring injury, come on,
sucks.
man. As a Cardinal fan, I honestly think they don't lose that game unless that injury happens.
Yeah.
Because Vick was doing absolutely nothing through the air. And then Landry Jones came in, and he played well. Cardinals couldn't do it.
This is the type of injury, to me, that pushes Big Ben through whatever pain he has and gets Big Ben back on the field a week earlier. So I think we'll see Big Ben this next week. Obviously speculation
right.
at this point, but that means this is the perfect time to trade for Antonio Brown.
I completely agree with Jason on that. And an interesting note I heard on the way into work on Starks. Starks found out he was starting the game. He was going to be the starter as the game was starting.
That'll work.
So they called the formation, and he's like, "What? I'm
that's funny.
taking the first snap."
Okay.
Wow.
Got to be ready to go.
So speaking of James Starks, if you were if you saw that coming with a weak run defense and you said Eddie Lacy's been bad, I'm going to throw James Starks into my FanDuel lineup. Congratulations.
Yeah.
That worked out. So we just want to thank our sponsor, FanDuel, the weekly fantasy sport leader. So FanDuel is the leader, like I just said, in 1 week fantasy football with more winners and more payouts than any other site. They are paying out over $75 million a week this football season. It's a salary cap format. You can pick any players you want for just 1 week, like Colin Kaepernick or Brian Hoyer, and then you win money. So entry fees start at just $1. Anybody can play. This is what we need the Foot Clan to do. You head over to FanDuel.com. You click on the microphone in the upper right-hand corner. Use our code BALLERS.
Ballers.
And sign up now. And there's a special offer for new users. For every $1 you deposit, FanDuel will match it with up to $200 that gets earned as you play. That's a bonus of up to $200 for free.
Yeah.
Free is the best kind of money.
Free cash money, homie.
Cash money. You guys remember that? No? All right. But the offer is only good for new users. Use our coupon code BALLERS. FanDuel.com, where every day is a new season. That's FanDuel.com. Sign up today.
And we'd also like to thank our other sponsor, Harry's. You've heard us talk about Harry's, a great shaving product. Shaving can be a pain. It can be uncomfortable, cause razor burns, nicks, is just disastrous for your skin. I know for me, my neck has always been a little sensitive. I'm a sensitive guy, and my razors have always torn it up until Harry's. Their razors are actually really, really high quality. They bought out a company in Germany that made these blades just so that they could have them and have them cheap. So there's no more paying $32 for an 8-pack of blades. Harry's, you can get a starter pack for $15. You get a razor, you get a moisturizing shave cream, which is awesome, and 3 blades. Plus, with our promo code FOOTBALLERS, you get $5 off your first purchase. So here's the deal. If you have a razor in your house, yours, your ladies', if you own a razor, you need to be buying it on Harry's, because otherwise you're just spending too much money and getting bad blades. So go to Harry's.com now, and Harry's will give you $5 off if you type in our code FOOTBALLERS with your first purchase. That's Harry's.com. Enter our Footballers coupon code for $5 out, and start shaving better today.
All right. Well, if you haven't listened to us before, on Monday we go through the best players of the weekend and the worst, and we put these stat lines into some fantasy context for you. We let you know whether these things are going to continue, whether you should count on them, or whether or not it was just a 1 week flash in the pan, flash in the pan. So let's go ahead and get into the stud muffins.
This week's Fantasy Stud Muffins.
I think Razorburn would be a great name for a band.
Razorburn. Yeah, I'd be in that band. You want to start that?
Yeah, only if the .com is available, though, because that's how I live my life.
That's how you live your life?
Yeah.
It's a good idea if that means you thought of it first. There's probably some band out there called Razorburn right now.
Maybe.
Yeah, there is.
I wonder.
I love them.
Yeah. All right, Matt Stafford. Jason talked about this. Everybody doubted it. Jason said it first. He gets the credit. Matt Stafford, he's played very, very difficult pass defenses for the first 5 weeks of the season. I did tell a lot of people, do not bail on Calvin Johnson. Do not bail on Matt Stafford is what Jason said. And he came out, and boy, was it a messy game. But 400 yards and 4 touchdowns, that's good, right?
Here's what we see from two teams, the Detroit Lions and the San Diego Chargers. When you do not have a running back that can run the ball, you have to throw it every time, and that's really good for quarterbacks' productions. Even if you take away the Golden Tate ridiculous touchdown, which I'm happy about because he was my start of the week. So, yay, saw that coming. If you take that away, he still had 3 other touchdowns. He put up a ton of yardage. So, he's a guy that you shouldn't have bailed on, or you should have picked up off of the waivers this last week. He's got a good stretch of matchups coming up, but he is truly a matchup-dependent guy.
Streamer.
He is a streamer.
He's a streamer now.
Do not get in love with the name just because, he's back. If he's got a good matchup, absolutely roll him. If he's got a bad matchup, roll someone else.
Maybe maybe that touchdown call was one of those Buffalo Wild Wings things where they pull the levers and they wanted the game to go to overtime so you can get some more food, isn't that? All right, Phillip Rivers had a monster game, statistically.
Yeah.
He was 500 yards. He broke the record for San Diego.
He broke a lot of records. I think most
2
pass
touchdowns, 60-something attempts.
Yeah.
63, 64.
No interceptions.
If he could have just connected on that last touchdown.
Would had the play before.
Yes, he did. When he forced it to Gates.
The second time it was a major force, and he might as well have been picked.
If they had completed that and got in the end zone and went to overtime, he could have broken just the full-on NFL record for a yardage. He was on fire. Green Bay could not stop the pass.
And like I said, they had stopped the run completely, not just because they were down, but Melvin Gordon fumbled 2 times.
Got the bench.
Got the bench.
Yeah.
I think that puts his
Brandon
touchdown.
Oliver was out there.
I think his touchdown to fumble ratio now is 22 fumbles to 0 touchdowns.
Well, speaking of fumbles, that's the exact same thing that they couldn't be more similar situations. Amir Abdullah, a rookie, fumbled again, fell on the ball. They claimed that he was off the field due to a stinger. Not that. So he was on the sideline for most of the second.
Pride stinger.
I came out on the morning of Sunday and said Abdullah might be a sneaky start because Joik was out, and it started really well. I said PPR, because Riddick was maybe going to miss the game. He turned out he didn't and had a good game. He started out really well, but then that injury happened, and Abdullah spent most of the time on the sideline, and they had to fight back. And
Zach Zenner got injured as well in that game.
So Ryan Fitzpatrick, 253 and 2. Brian Hoyer, 293 and 3. Yeah. Blake Bortles comes out again, 331 and 3.
Fitzpatrick was in here because he also had a rushing touchdown.
Yeah, and then Kaepernick, 340 yards, 2 touchdowns. And the 49ers won the ball game. So out of these, the rest of this quarterbacks, we'll move on to wide receivers here. But, Bortles is the one I have the biggest long-term question for because he was already in the top 10 at the quarterback position, and he came out against, the Texans and had a good game again, 30 completions.
And there was the Twitter sphere was abuzz with the talking about wind, which weather is not usually a concern for quarterbacks. The only weather that is a problem is wind. So it was, do we need to downgrade both Hoyer and Bortles? But it was not a factor.
7 touchdowns in the last 2 games. He did throw 3 interceptions. That's what you get with Bortles right now is the picks.
Bortles going to Bortles.
Yeah, he's going to Bortles. But we have to remember, Allen Robinson is an ascending star. Allen Hurns is a very good 2. And now you have Julius Thomas back, who caught a big touchdown pass. Julius Thomas had a big game. I'm sure we'll talk about him shortly. But, he's been over 300 yards pretty much the last 3 games. So, 298 against the Colts. So, Bortles right now, he's a top 5 statistically.
And Bortles is an ultimate garbage man. He thrives on that. But garbage time isn't my favorite thing to count on. But Bortles is getting done weekly. With or without the garbage time.
You know what's good about that? We've talked about it on the show before, but there are some quarterbacks that if they end up in garbage time, you would expect big things, but they're not good in that situation. Bortles is one of those
Matt
guys.
Ryan. Matt Ryan is the worst garbage time guy.
Yeah, he really is. And Bortles is nice because obviously if he's throwing well and they get a lead, well, it's because he was throwing well, and if they're down, he's got to throw a lot. So yeah, and really, Andy, you brought it up. It's the weapons. You look at Andy Dalton. He has so many weapons now to throw to, and you look at Bortles, and you go, oh, man, Allen Hurns is for real. Allen Robinson is for real. Julius Thomas, he's got weapons who can do things after they catch the ball that's going to help get in the end zone.
And Dalton did it again, 3 touchdowns.
Red Rocket, he's a man.
Wow.
I thought you were going to go with Red Rocket.
Yum. That's better.
All right, wide receivers. DeAndre Hopkins might very well be the best fantasy wide receiver in the league.
Yes. I was going to ask this question when we got to this point, and so I will. You have DeAndre Hopkins on your team, and you can trade him straight up for any other wide receiver in the league. Anyone, straight up, and they will say yes. Anyone. You can get Julio. You can get anyone. Who do you want?
Hopkins. I'm taking Hopkins.
The only one that would make me pause would be Julio because of the quarterback difference for Hopkins. However, it seems like whoever you roll out there, they're just throwing the ball to Hopkins all the time. Yeah. And so in that regard, I think it's super close. I'd probably stick with Hopkins for the health and the quarterback.
For the health, the reason that I would.
The target numbers are astronomical.
And not only just the targets, because we had a Cardinal, who had
Rob Moore broke the record,
exactly.
98,
and he was a pretty good wide receiver, but he wasn't that great. He caught like 50% of his catches that year.
Targets,
yes. He caught 50% of his catches. Amazing.
No, that's allowed in the NFL now. Some catches aren't catches.
That's true.
Right?
Golden Tate's doing that very well.
But does anybody have a better track record with horrific calls than Golden Tate?
All going in his favor?
Yeah.
Golden Tate's got his whole career stat line. His money is dependent on those.
But DeAndre Hopkins' talent with that targets, you mix those things together, and he is the number one guy that
Did you see his helmet catch?
Yes. What?
Oh, when he went full
On the
Tyree?
Yes,
Yeah.
Tyree.
Yes, yeah.
It was
Andrew
It's
Siciliano.
interesting
I
when
like the verb usage of he David Tyree'd the
Yeah.
ball. I like it.
I like it when the best option in the middle of a catch, a receiver decides just to pin it to his helmet. Like, this is what I need to do right now.
Whatever it
Pretty
takes.
incredible catch. All right, let me give you some other guys that really stepped up. Let me start with Alshon Jeffrey. Alshon Jeffrey, we've been waiting, and I waited so long that I traded him to Jason. And then he had 8 for 147 and 1. Jason's extremely excited. He won in our league of record this week with Alshon Jeffrey. He beat Mike,
the fantasy hitman, right?
and so he had a huge game. Obviously, barring setbacks with the hamstring in practice, he is locked in as a 1.
Absolutely.
So if you waited on him, congrats. If you bought him cheap, congrats. It was now are they on bye?
Yes.
Okay.
So not a wide receiver 1 this week.
Yeah. So Martavis Bryant, 6 for 137 and
welcome
2. What do you?
Oh, I was thinking you could
What?
hit the Martavis Bryant saying hi.
No.
Letting them know
no.
you're listening to the
That doesn't make any
footballers.
sense. That's an intro.
Fair enough.
All right. Calvin Johnson, 6 for 166 and 1.
You're glossing over Bryant.
No, I'm not. I'm
you're
pointing
coming
out
back?
some of the stats, and you
Okay.
guys kind of talk about these guys. Well, let's stay with those two
Okay.
for now. So Calvin, big bounce back, overtime helped, caught a big bomb in overtime. He also caught a touchdown that we thought was going to win the game at the end of the game that didn't. Calvin, is this what you wanted to see in terms of like, okay, now he's going to be a 1 the rest of the season?
It's possible. What was severely missing was those shots of Stafford just saying, whatever, I don't care. It's a 40-yard in the air. I'm just going to wing it up to Calvin Johnson. And he did it multiple times in that game when we had not seen it basically the entire season.
Yeah, I agree. I wish there were more shots, just normal. I wish he had more targets than he had, but he still had a fine game, and it was a little frustrating. He had, I think, 3 catches early, and then there was a period of time where he just wasn't targeted and wasn't used, and it was like, oh no, are they going to do this? But he did bounce back, and I expect him to keep up a really solid pace from here
If
on
they
out.
can figure any type of running game out, then you can play action pass, and then you can take those deep shots. I think you're not going to see them consistently without that. Martavis Bryant had a humongous game. Both of his touchdowns came from Landry Jones, including the second one, which was basically a 10-yard pass that he took. But that's what he does. He's got top speed that is almost unmatchable in football. So Martavis, humongous game. Big Ben coming back. What is it going to be? Because I still wonder if you're going to see the hit and miss games due to the fact that there are other weapons there. But
I think he's going to be a locked and loaded wide receiver too, where
Yeah.
his bad games are going to be all right because Big Ben will be back soon, and he's going to take over all of the role that Darius Haywood-Bay has been doing all right with. So I think that he's going to have a baseline that is good enough to not be scared about duds, and when he breaks them off, man, I mean, he is a better athlete than these amazing athletes.
there's one other guy I really want to talk about at the wide receiver position, and I am so disappointed because at 9:05 in the morning, I went on my phone, and I went to add Stephon Diggs to my roster, and waivers had gone through at 9 o'clock, and I was confused because I thought I was before that deadline. So I went, I put the waiver claim in, and then it said, oh, he's locked. And I said, oh, no.
We watched him last week, the week before this week. Were we at Buffalo Wild Wings?
Yeah, it was
or-
2 weeks ago.
Oh, yeah.
Because they had to buy. But
And it was just amazing because there was play after play, and we kept looking up going, who is Diggs? Remind me, because wow, was he impressive. And now
7
you see
for
it.
129 this week. He's a rookie. Was given the starting job on Sunday morning and went out and performed to this level. So I think he's going to be at the top of my waiver wire priority list in
I
terms of the
imagine
wide
so.
receivers. So
Over, you don't want Lance Moore?
I think Lance Moore. No, I don't want Lance Moore. Lance Moore had a good game, but I mean, he always does this. He has like 1 or 2 good games for whatever team he's on. every
Marvin
year.
Jones.
Yeah, Marvin Jones is
Would you
was
take him over
over who?
Stephen Diggs?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, Marvin Jones had a monster game, 9 for 95 and a touchdown. He probably won't be on our waiver show because I think he's owned in over half of leagues. But if you're in a league where he's not owned, Marvin Jones needs to be a guy that you own for sure. All right, let's go talk about some running backs. These first 2 guys, are they the number 1 and number 2 running back in fantasy? Devontae Freeman, Chris Ivory.
Freeman.
Statistically, yes.
You were talking about weekly or season?
I'm talking about rest of season.
Freeman, yes. Ivory, no.
Okay, so why not Ivory? He's had 2 straight games of 140-plus yards and touchdowns. He was already number 3 in points per game.
Just number 2.
Why wouldn't he keep it up? I'm just asking for fantasy owners.
I like him as a 1. I might even say as a top 5 option moving forward. But to me, Le'Veon Bell is still the number 2.
Okay, so who would you take over Ivory?
Le'Veon Bell.
I know that. Who else would you take over Ivory?
I think I would still take Peterson over him.
Okay.
There's not many guys. I mean, Foster. I'd probably still take Foster over him. There's just a couple guys. I love Ivory, and I think.
What about Forte? That's where I see the Forte or Ivory.
Ivory had 3 catches in this game too
for 50 yards.
Now, part of that had to do with Bilal Powell not being in on third down.
My issue with Ivory, I said this before. Ivory, if he's playing, he is a must start. He is matchup proof, and I think he is fantastic. The whole worry with him before the season is just he's got an injury prone label, and he missed a game during the year already. So you do worry a little bit about him getting banged up the way they're just running him into the ground. Like Lamar Miller. I don't know if he's on. Oh, he is on this list. He's back. He still couldn't get 20 carries despite being on a great pace, but that's because they pulled him when the game was completely out of reach after 19 carries for 113 yards and a touchdown. But that's something you're not seeing the Jets do, which is great for fantasy. They're going to let Chris Ivory, even if they're up by 50 points, they're just going to keep giving him the rock.
Well, that game got closer too.
Yeah, it did.
There was a special teams touchdown for Washington. 7.3 a carry against Washington's defensive front. 5.7 a carry last time he played in Miami. He had the bye week. Seems healthy. Really looks the part on the field. And so that's why I brought him up as he's still a guy. These are the type of players that if you think they're a top 5 running back, you can go buy them at a less than top 5 price.
Absolutely.
Because of their performance. The turnover on top running backs happens every single year. A different guy ends up at the top of this list a lot of the times. You have a few of the same characters and some that aren't. And so if Ivory's going to be one of those guys, I want our listeners to know to go buy him on the cheap.
The only concern for me with Ivory, and I cautiously say this, I'm not saying sell Ivory or anything like that. You hold on to Ivory. Ryan Fitzpatrick has been very solid, and that helps the offense completely where a team can't just key in on the running game. Now, he has Brandon Marshall, so that helps. But Ryan Fitzpatrick is notorious for as soon as the winter hits, his play goes south. And he's up. He did that time after time in Buffalo where it gets very cold. He's in New York. It gets very cold. So that's my that would be a caution flag for me on Ivory.
You want to know who they play next week?
Who's that?
In Foxborough.
Ooh.
The Jets and the Patriots, and what I think will be an outstanding game. It'll be very interesting to see what happens. Revis, gets the face off against the Patriots.
The Jets said they were licking their chops for that matchup. They're looking forward to it, and that's going to be a great game.
What was my upset pick of the week? Do you guys remember?
I'm trying to remember.
I can't remember.
It was Carolina.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
That's right.
Yep.
Boom! Oh, as Cardinal fans, that was delightful. And for all you Seahawks fans that keep mocking us on
sorry,
on
not
Twitter,
sorry.
Sorry, not sorry. Yeah, that's exactly right. So, all right, James Starks obviously had a big game, 10 for 112-1.
So what?
James Starks or Ryan Matthews rest of the season?
James Starks or Ryan Matthews? That's a great question.
Can I watch the game tonight first?
Yeah, sure.
It's
but you have to answer now.
It's probably still Ryan Matthews, but I mean, I was messaging you guys because I've been hoarding James Starks.
Yep.
And I'm like, apparently I have the Green Bay running back.
Apparently,
I don't know. It's if that situation works into a timeshare at all for James Starks with Eddie Lacy, then Starks is a fantastic option, fantastic flex option.
Jonathan Stewart was 20
Jonathan
for 78
Stewart.
and 2.
He got a touchdown.
Not just one.
What?
Not just one.
He, I had heard before the game, he was the third longest streak of carries without a touchdown in the league. He had 125 carries without a touchdown. Took care of that against Seattle. We said on the show he might do well because Wagner was not in the game, And Stewart definitely played well there. Oh my goodness, I heard some Cam Newton MVP discussion this morning.
It's worthy talk.
Yeah.
I mean, Carolina, they're led by their defense.
I just have to look at Mike when I say stuff like that because of all the Cam Newton doubt that floated through his bloodstream all offseason.
Yeah, I mean, he is clearly, if they had a different quarterback in there, if they had a pocket passing, decent quarterback, they would not be able to hang with these teams. But the way that they match his running style and make the offense a running team to match their defense, it just works for a really difficult team to get out really ahead of, and their defense keeps them in games. So,
all right, tight ends. Greg Olsen had another big week, 7 for 131 and 1 against, this is second straight tight end that torched the Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah, I talked about this.
So,
I said this Seattle is a sneaky tight end play against
Yeah, you
them.
did. And, it was Eifert last week, is Olsen this week. Ben Watson on Thursday night had the big 10 for 127 and 1. I actually think he should be signed in leagues. We'll talk about this on the waiver show because I think there is a building rapport between them. It doesn't mean he's going to do this every week, for goodness sakes. But when you do that,
Come on, that's what people want.
He's pretty reliable, made some tough catches. Gary Barnidge.
Maximum. We need to name Barnidge.
Nothing I've seen is jumping out as what I want to do. I mean, people want to go with the Barnidge Carnage combo, but I just I'm not. It's not there yet. It's not. I don't know what to call him yet.
See, in my head, I like Maximum Barnidge, but that's
that's the best thing I've heard.
Because I'm a Spider-Man dork, and Maximum Carnage was one of my favorite video games when I was growing up.
Maximum Barnidge took place on Sunday. Two more touchdowns.
That was more like Minimum Barnidge.
Hey, but that's the tight end position. He's not a yardage guy. He's got to score, and he scored 2 more. So, speaking of yardage, Jimmy Graham, 8 for 140.
Yeah.
he's back for this week.
He's had an okay season, guys.
Yeah.
I told you.
He's going to have an okay season.
I said he'd be all right because of his amount of routes run. That's not changing in Seattle. They obviously went to him more, but these were downfield throws. If you watch the highlights of every catch he made, 3 or 4 of them were downfield, seam, outside, broken play. He's starting to look at him a little bit more.
This was the first week that he had received a pass of over 20 yards in the air, and that's what he needs. He needs those distance passes, not just trying to get it to him early. And then he's a great route runner, and he can run that 9 or a great post. So
Julius Thomas and Delaney Walker. Julius Thomas was 7 for 78 and a touchdown. Delaney Walker was 8 for 97. Are these guys both start-worthy tight ends?
They are, to me.
Okay. Let's go ahead and talk about some of the guys that didn't perform so well.
Pooped in his big boy pants.
How long do we muse on Peyton Manning?
I don't know, Jason.
all right. So here's what you do with Peyton Manning immediately. If he's on your team, you put together a package trade. And
no one's trading for Peyton Manning.
So, I promise the listeners, someone is trading for Peyton Manning. There is something inside of you that goes, well, now you're not trading for Peyton. That's why I say a package deal. Because there's something that says, well, he could be. He's Peyton Manning. I mean, there's a part of me somewhere that goes, do I try to pick him up like for nothing? But I don't want him on my roster.
I got a trade for you. Eddie Lacy, Peyton Manning for Chris Ivory.
There you go. I mean, you're telling me the Chris Ivory owner wouldn't take that?
I would not. I would slap you in the face with
I
that
know
offer.
that you wouldn't. But you're telling me that the average Eddie Lacy...
Two big old names?
Average
That's what I mean.
The average Chris Ivory
Maybe,
owner
yeah,
would not
maybe.
take Eddie Lacy and Peyton Manning for Chris Ivory. They might. But that's the point, is it's a huge name. And so don't drop him. I hear a lot of, is Peyton Manning worthy of being dropped? Absolutely. Should you drop him? Absolutely not. Take a guy and just, if you're going to drop him anyways, take a middle-of-the-pack running back or wide receiver that you got, package him with Peyton Manning, and offer him for a little bit better running back or wide receiver. You'll get him, then you're open your roster spot for waivers. That's what you do with Peyton Manning.
Yeah, I can agree with trying that.
Three interceptions.
I'm not as confident that you'll be able to trade him, but because I had said if he sucks against Cleveland, who is
50% basically passing completion percentage.
That was a fantastic matchup for a quarterback. That's back-to-back fantastic matchups that he has failed in. There's not a situation where I feel comfortable starting unless I see a string of 3 Peyton Manning type performances. I mean, even if he does 2, I'm still not going to feel comfortable.
I'm so disappointed for the Browns and the Browns fans because that would have been a banner win for Pettin and that team, and they should have won the game. They brought it into overtime. They picked him off in overtime. They had it at like the 42, and they went backwards, and then the game was over.
Oh,
so.
then McCown did his best Josh McCown.
I feel like the Broncos.
Denver's defense is ridiculously good. It's ridiculous.
They're winning a couple games that they shouldn't necessarily
maybe,
win.
winning a lot of
maybe
games
3 or
they
4.
won.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they're just not putting up points, but it doesn't matter. And the pick sixes that they're every week, their defense is scoring points. So
I believe, I don't remember the number off the top of my head, but I saw it on Twitter. People were talking about it. The defense and special teams have scored more than the offense.
yeah, I mean, it's been incredible.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, it is. All right, Eddie Lacy, 4 carries, 3 yards. He pooped his big boy pants. Deion Lewis was 4 for 21 on the ground, 3 for 18 in the air. I looked at this game pretty closely to try to figure out what was going on. There was some reports before the game about Deion Lewis's health. I honestly don't think his health was that much of an issue. This was part game flow. He actually outsnapped LeGarrette Blount still, but he just wasn't involved in the screen game to the capacity we've seen him in the past. And this is one of the things that happens in New England.
So you're still comfortable with Deion Lewis?
I'm still comfortable with Deion Lewis.
Good.
Absolutely, yeah. They just locked him up on that contract. I like I said, he was out there more than Blount was, but it just didn't turn out that way. That was LeGarrette Blount's first ever passing touchdown on that broken play where I don't know if you guys both
He looked good.
He was waving his arms. I'm like, oh, that's where the ball's going because he was open. No one covers LeGarrette Blount out of the backfield. Adrian Peterson had a very day.
High volume, low production.
26 for 60, and they won the game. I mean, no one deserved to win that game, I don't think.
There's a couple of games like that this week where it seemed like neither team really wanted to win.
That's like the fantasy football matchup between, the 2 lowest scoring guys of the week, and you wish you could just count them both as losses against them, but somebody has to win. But, I mean, the Vikings got it done, and the Chiefs are heading for that number 1 pick if they don't change something. I mean, they missed Jamal Charles.
Sharkhandrick West and Niall Davis. Woohoo!
Yeah.
Andy, you said this beforehand, but you didn't think that there was going to be a real true replacement. I mean, clearly last week we don't blame anyone. We said, he's the top waiver pick because there is the chance that you're getting, the starting running back, and that's not found on the waivers. And if he's any good, that would prove valuable to your fantasy team. But they're just not that great a talent. They're not a Jamal Charles himself is an otherworldly talent. Sometimes it's the offensive line that's causing the production, but it was Jamal Charles, and I don't trust either Kansas City back going forward.
I'm not done with West. I think he still got the majority of touches. Yeah, I think it was touches or snaps. I can't remember. But I'm not giving up on him after this week. And I think the whoever blew the fab on him might be like, get off of my lineup, and I would scoop him up.
All right, and we don't expect Peterson to continue with these type of numbers.
No.
Wide receiver wise, let me read you 4 names: Jeremy Maclin, Randall Cobb, Antonio Brown, AJ Green, superstar.
Like we all predicted.
Wow.
They buried people this week.
Yeah.
Terrible games. And, for AJ Green's sake, Marvin Jones, 9 for 91 and a touchdown. It seemed like him and, Jeremy Hill had a passing touchdown. Eifert had a passing touchdown. Jones had a passing touchdown. It just wasn't AJ Green's week.
If you look at Andy Dalton's line and you go, okay,
I'm
so
not
AJ
worried
Green
about
had
AJ Green at all.
Had a great game.
Yeah, I know.
No, you don't worry about any of these guys. You don't even worry about Antonio Brown.
We told you to sit Brown. Cobb is a concern for a number of reasons. The second straight game where he was very bad, and I told Jason during the week.
It's not the third?
Might be.
I think it's the second.
But
I'm gonna look.
Cobb has come out and said that his injury is going to last the whole season.
Well, and this is a little bit of a scary proposition than for Emmanuel Sanders because it's essentially the same type of injury that Randall Cobb had earlier is what Emmanuel Sanders had late in that game. So all the more reason to package.
It's the third. I mean, 5 for 44, 3 for 23, 2 for 38.
10 catches for 105 yards in the past 3 games combined
since the 3 touchdowns
and no touchdowns. And he said his shoulder remains an issue. Now, I you got the bye week. I'm giving him another week to come out after the bye and see if he has a better week. But otherwise, it's, not what you expected as pretty much the number 1 option for him. So Trouble on the Cobb front. Macklin, his stat line was impeded by a concussion.
Yeah, well, they sucked in the entire first half. The Chiefs, man, they are very disappointing to me. I was very much hoping the Chiefs would be a solid team this year, and it's just
came to fruition.
Alex Smith, man.
You know what was really frustrating was Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce ended up with an okay line, a fine line for a tight end. It wasn't something that you hope for, but it wasn't awful. All of that, 100% of that production came in the second half.
Yeah.
At halftime, he wasn't – the first half, they didn't even look his way. I mean, they didn't use him at all, and it's just ridiculous. Then they go in at halftime and go, oh, yeah, we got this big, huge guy. Let's just start giving him the ball, and then he, explodes. If he did that both halves – he would have had an amazing stat line. But that's always been a frustration in Kansas City with Andy Reid is just he doesn't know how to get his guys involved.
All right, so we have the Giants and the Eagles tonight in a big Monday Night Football game. Do you guys have any gut instincts on who wins this game? It's in Philadelphia, 5-point favorites. I'm gonna go with the Giants.
I'm gonna take the Eagles.
Okay.
I'm also on the Eagles side. I think the home field advantage.
I think they're figuring it out, but the biggest question of the game is Odell Beckham. Everything sounds like he's going to play. If you're not checking into that, it sounds like he's going to play with his hamstring injury. The concern, though, is the weather, that it will be a colder night, and that's always makes it difficult to warm up. And so if his hamstring is not properly warmed up, he can knock himself right out of the game quickly. But
as could Reuben Randall. Because we can't forget that. I mean, he doesn't have the big name, so we haven't been talking about his hamstring. I know he got back to practice in full, but hamstrings are those re-aggravatable injuries. So for my taste, I like Dwayne Harris in this game. Should ODB be out?
That's a funny face.
Yeah.
I don't like Dwayne Harris in this game.
Should ODB be out?
If Odell Beckham's out?
Not really.
I wish there was a way we could water bet that. Like, if he's out, he's going to have a fantastic game.
I like him like I would like, a 3 becoming a 2 in that situation. I mean, I wouldn't really want to be starting him. I certainly don't think many teams will be. If you're handcuffing ODB with Harris,
that's exactly
you
what
might,
I'm talking about.
But I just don't like. I think the ball could go to Donnell, it could go to Vereen, it could go elsewhere. I mean, it's going to go elsewhere. So
I think Harris can get involved.
Yeah, he can, but I wouldn't feel confident about it.
Let's say you have both quarterbacks, because that's actually very possible that you have Eli Manning and Sammy Biscuits. You are trailing tonight. Who are you going with?
I'm going with the home quarterback. I'm going to go with Sammy.
Okay.
Let's go ahead and get into the mailbag, and tomorrow we'll have a lot of discussion on the specific waiver guys that we have. We're also going to be on the Chris Harris podcast tomorrow talking waivers, so you can catch us over there as well. So let's go ahead and get into the mailbag.
Mailbag.
All right, let's start with the voicemail question.
Hey, guys, I'm in a 10-man PPR. Our benches aren't really too deep, and I have a pretty good team here. I'm currently running 5-0, but Stafford has been just killing me. And I don't have the room to carry 2 quarterbacks. I got a lot of talent on my bench, and I'm wondering if I should drop Stafford. Now, mind you, we do have an IR spot, and I have Romo in there. So I'm wondering, is there a guy on the wire, like a Tannehill? There's even a Jameis out there, a few guys. What kind of quarterback could I possibly look at to replace Stafford over the next few weeks until Romo gets back? Hopefully I get it answered on the air. Thanks, guys.
I don't know if he's going to like the answer.
Is your answer to keep Stafford?
No, the answer is you listen to the streaming section of the show and you play one of those guys. Stafford, you can hold him if you want. He takes on the Vikings, who actually have a decent defense up in Minnesota. The Chiefs, that'd be a great matchup if you had him. The Packers had been solid until the Phillip Rivers game, so I'm still not sure.
Yeah, but
what's
the Packers
going on with
come
them.
after a bye. So the next 2 weeks for him are Minnesota and Kansas City.
I wouldn't want to play Stafford in either game.
I would love to play
play
Stafford
against
against Kansas City, but that's 2 weeks from now. So I agree with you. I would listen to the streaming section. I mean, if you look
Bortles?
Yeah, not exactly. Bortles. I mean, we haven't that's going to be on tomorrow's show. So listen tomorrow, and you'll hear our picks for the next week because we're going to do a lot more research today. And not to toot our own horns too much, but the last few weeks, our guys that we've been picking who are freely available on the waiver wire have been outperforming all of the normal starters. So I think you're safe to do this. And that's why, just a reminder for next season, that's why we say don't spend your high picks on a quarterback.
There's very few, to me, plug-and-play quarterbacks. I mean, you have Rodgers.
Brady.
Yeah, Brady.
Luck.
Luck, who finally bounced back with a 3-touchdown game.
Dalton.
Dalton
funny, but it's true.
Dalton has earned his way into that situation, but maybe Palmer. But Palmer's he's struggled for fantasy recently, even though he's putting up yardage, he's not scoring. But I mean, there's very, very few guys who you say, screw it, I don't care about the matchup, I'm just going to play that guy. Maybe Newton is in that conversation. But other than that, there is a ton of guys who are available, like a Brian Hoyer, because they're trash. That's what the public conception of them is. They're not good. But it's a quarterback. It's a passing league. They're just the points are there as long as you're paying attention to the matchup.
I agree. And just a reminder to everybody, you can leave us a voicemail question at 302-464-TFFB. You can go to the website, submit a question, thefantasyfootballers.com. Nick writes in from Malta. He says, going into tonight's game, he is 6 points down in a PPR league. Ryan Matthews or Sproles tonight. Opponent has no one left to play. And he says he's looking forward to more WaterBet videos.
The WaterBet videos are being edited.
Yeah, they were already done and paid out for last week.
Oh my gosh! Stay tuned for that, by the way, because let's just put it this way. This is all I'll say. I spun the wheel to get paid out, and I had to do what was called the English channel.
Oh yeah!
So just be ready for that.
Finally, we got it,
and it turned out.
I have a similar story to you on our waivers this week. I actually went, and I don't understand it because it was 8 in the morning. It was before waivers go through, but Sproles was locked. I didn't understand that at all. I couldn't pick him up, or I couldn't drop anybody on my team. Is the problem? I could pick him up, but I couldn't drop somebody who played at 9.
You might have had afternoon game guys then.
Maybe they were all afternoon. I don't know, but I do like Sproles a lot.
You're probably just doing it wrong.
The
just like your life.
Hey,
I think it's a good question, but you probably still have to go Ryan Matthews here.
Matthews for sure.
Yeah. Well, the only question is that groin. And we haven't had any update on Ryan Matthews.
No, he's practiced, and I think
has he?
Yeah, he has.
Full PPR league.
I can double check that just because I don't want to say the wrong thing. But I had read Matthews this morning.
Here's my thought: depending on Ryan Matthews' health, if you read up before the game that Ryan Matthews is okay, or they're going to test it, or it's a game time decision, then go with Sproles because you know he's going to play. He only needs 6 points, and in a PPR setting, I'm really hard-pressed to believe that Darren Sproles doesn't get 6 points. I mean, if he gets, 4 catches, 3 catches for 30 yards,
right?
That's it. And when we were previewing this game last week, the New York Giants defense has been giving up all of those little screens over the top. That's why I picked Zach Ertz as my player of the week for tight end, was because I said Sproles and Zach Ertz, those are the 2 players that are going to exploit that. So if Matthews is playing and he's healthy, he's probably going to get more usage than Sproles.
Yeah, you have to monitor that before the game. The groin injury only popped up on Friday. He went through practice on Saturday, but that's just a walkthrough. So he's expecting to play, but if for some reason he's not, then start the safer Sproles health wise. Jason in New York City.
New York City.
There you go. I was waiting for it. Pretty simple. Do you think that strength of schedule is a valuable tool? He needs expert advice before he makes trades for players because they have a strong schedule in the fantasy playoffs. Yeah, so talk about that. This will be our kind of wrap it up question here. Strength of schedule. Do you start to pay attention to that now when you trade for guys? Because you have you're 5-0, you're 4-1. You think you're going to be in the playoffs, but your guys have really tough appearances in terms of the strength of schedule.
100% you use it. I have not offered a trade or considered making a trade at this point in this last week without at least looking at the schedule. That's not to say you overreact and you go, oh, this guy's got a bad matchup in week 13, so I can't have him. But I couldn't imagine making a trade without doing the research of, what's this guy's schedule look like versus another guy, because half of the year is almost gone fantasy-wise. And so if you just look at two average players and one of them has a good schedule coming up who's had a bad one, that's really valuable information. That I know you, Andy, you have always known. Every time I've ever seen you make a trade, you actually know who, not only the matchup in the NFL, but also the matchup of your opponents. And a lot of times you'll make trades with guys that you know, oh, I'm playing this guy in week 7, and he's going from his team to my team. You look at those things; they're just unfair advantages that you utilize.
I agree. I've started to look at playoff schedules when I'm looking at a target. No, but you got to understand, like, against the defense, things can change so quickly, which is why we try not to overreact to the opening schedule of when you're drafting a player. Like, oh, he's got a terrible schedule. Yeah, well, then a Bobby Wagner gets hurt, and all of a sudden a notoriously tough run defense, Jonathan Stewart puts up almost 100 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Yep.
Like, one player injured changes an entire defense, so it's hard to make that your be-all, end-all for something that's happening in 8 weeks or so. But I do start looking at that and using it as an influencer.
Sure.
In the trade.
One more quick one. Jai wants to know thoughts on dropping Carlos Williams for Christian Michael.
Yeah, I think you can do it. I'll say that if you have LaShawn McCoy, and I don't know,
If I had McCoy, I wouldn't do it.
I probably would not do it. But I mean, we have no idea what Michael's going to do, and I say that as the ultimate Michael truther. But if he's given the opportunity and he succeeds, this is a league-winning move. If all of a sudden you get a running back 1 off of the waiver wire, your team has a huge advantage. You look through past history. I only have recent in my head, but Odell Beckham Jr. If you picked Odell Beckham Jr. up for free in week 6, your chance of being
He was the most owned player
in championship
but,
weeks.
yeah, by
because
percentage.
you got a free top 5 guy. If you get a free running back 1, you got to go for it.
Yeah, I completely agree with what you're saying there. That is it for today's show. We want to thank you for joining the Fantasy Footballers today.
We did a marathon today.
I know, it was a little longer. We have a waiver wire show tomorrow. We'll be reviewing the Monday Night Football game and all that transpires this evening. I want to remind everybody, if you want to help the show out, you can visit us on jointhefoot.com, our fantasy football community. Get exclusive episodes, content, things that you don't just get through the podcast. And also tell a friend about the podcast. Tell them to check it out. It doesn't have to be someone in your league. You can leave those people out of it. That way you can take care of business in your league.
If you are a YouTuber and our paleness offends you, go to jointhefoot.com. We have an impending spray tan.
Oh, that's
yes,
funny.
the spray tan reward is coming on jointhefoot.com.
We will be,
and there's nothing you can do to stop it.
We will be bronze beauties.
Oh, are we getting the bodybuilder bronzing?
Yeah, where they
yes,
they
please.
accent and they highlight muscles.
Yeah, I
so all
want
of a sudden
painted on. I want painted on.
I want
abs.
them. See, if I could do the bronzing for one show, that would be.
The problem is it sticks for like 3 weeks.
Oh,
those
I'm pumped.
bodybuilders. I don't think they stick for 3 weeks.
Oh no, not the.
No,
like,
it's because they have real muscles.
Ah.
That usually sticks around.
I'd like some. Can I just get a spray muscles as well? Can you spray those on?
You have to. You could just wear like the muscle bodysuit from Arrested Development.
I'll work on that before the spray tan.
$3,000 suit. Come on.
All right, that's it for the show. We'll see you tomorrow, guys. Take care.
Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to another edition of the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Don't forget to visit us on the web at www.thefantasyfootballers.com and follow us on Twitter @TheFFBallers.